Dust War Journals is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon, and this month especially we want to thank Jesper Kjærgaard Jensen and Michael Montelongo. And if you want to bring support to Dust War Journals, just head to patreon.com/dustwarjournals. And now, on with the show.
What is this?
What is this? I don't know. This is Dust War Journals, episode 19, your number one stop for all news Dust related. And I am Johannes, welcoming you to this episode, and with me today are...
Ludvig.
And Magnus, known as Magoff on the forums.
And spring has sprung around us.
Springtime for
Fine
Dust Journals and Vikings too.
The cold is gone.
Yay!
Yeah, and we are sorry that our guests for Dust Nordic missed it.
Sorry.
Well, next year we're gonna host it a little bit later. So
yeah, we are in April. So hopefully we're gonna have better luck with the weather. But the tournament itself was really nice. Turned out well. I think we're gonna talk a bit more about that later on.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that, has there been any kind of hobby-related stuff going on with you guys?
Oh yeah, immensely actually. As always, it's always nice to meet Marek and when he's all his goodies with him. So I've put together 2 wildfires. I put together a Thor miniature, a Thor miniature train, some fences, ruin building, and I've been quite busy actually. Although the recent project is repainting Lego minis for my daughter, because I couldn't afford to buy her the big Harley Quinn and Supergirl set, so now I've repainted one Lego mini to a Harley Quinn and one to Supergirl.
That's
very
nice.
nice.
Nice. Not too much hobby stuff for me. I got some new stuff from Marek on Nordic.
You have been building and painting in a scale 1:1, I think.
Yeah, exactly. My new hobby room is really taking shape and continuing with the rest of the apartment. So it's going to finish up fairly soon, and it's going to be awesome.
Very cool.
Please tell me you're making a dot in the center of the hobby room, so you know how to trace it.
That was the first thing I did. So.
Really cool, so we can argue about where the corner is.
Yes. Do I have line of sight to the hobby room or not?
That's great. Yeah, for me, I think the big thing was that we had GothCon here in Gothenburg, the big annual gaming convention. It was great, as always. I think that the most fun thing for me was that for the last couple of years, we bring on the final day, we've always gone there, me and my wife, with her niece, who's 7 this year. But she's gone since she was 4, so up until now it's just mostly been looking around at all the different nerdy stuff, the kind of jousting with the knights going on at the outside, and playing a few kids games. This time was a little bit different. She's starting to grasp some more advanced games, some more advanced rules. At one point, she picked up Memoir 44 and said, "Can we play these, please?" So I bought it, and now I have it, so we can play it with her. So
right, success.
Yeah,
yes. That's taking responsibility.
Of course, making it for the next generation, definitely.
I wished I could have gone to GothCon, but unfortunately, as I perhaps mentioned before the broadcast, my daughter got sick, so we couldn't come. But
yeah, that happens. I've been kind of sick as well. That's one of the reasons why this episode has been slightly delayed. But we are discussing things that will hopefully kind of help mitigate that kind of stuff. But we'll see. But there have been some quite good news and some quite a lot of new stuff going on in the world of Dust.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's just get right into it then. Tons of new releases. We have some, as always, some re-releases, so to speak, of some older units with new premium patterns. The Steel Guard Command Squad, the Humber, and the Panzer. And as always, these look fantastic. I think personally, my favorite of these is the Panzer, mostly because of course, the look of the tank itself, but also that this specific Babylon pattern looks very much like the one that I painted myself. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting kind of tidbit. We also finally seen the re-release of the Laser Grenadiers. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this, including me, and especially now since they have been updated with the new stats.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you don't get the upgraded card in the box, so you have to have the app, or you have to know that the stats have been updated. So that's a little bit of a downer, but we have been confirmed that the new cards are going to be available with the next expansion book. There are all the cards that have been changed from the last card pack will have new updated versions with the Hellgate. Yes. Yeah. And this is one of them.
But isn't it already updated with the squared cards? So if you print your square cards, you get your correct
that is
Laser
true.
Grenadier. So
that is true.
Yeah.
And
that's great, because now they are. Before they were not very good, to say the least. But now they have they have the role. They are a cheap unit and they can actually do some stuff. So I really like this.
Yeah, I'm immensely happy that they have made a reboot of them, but still they weren't shit, as some people said. They were just not super good. They are not super good now either, but they are better now, of course.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the thing. Before, you really had to be in love with the unit to use it. You didn't use it because it's kind of fun, I'm going to have to fluff, because there are tons of other stuff that you could take for the same amount of points as two of those squads, and that you would feel would perform better than two of those squads. And now that's not as clear cut. Now you can use them just because you like the look of the model, and you're not feeling like you're gimping your army list because of it.
Yeah, exactly. Now they are worth their point, I would say. When I heard about the update, I was really hoping that they would be able to fire at aircraft again, because they had that ability back in version 1 of the game. Unfortunately, they still cannot fire aircraft, but at least they do shoot a lot now against the light infantry. They kill stuff now.
A lot. Well, they do fire a lot more than they used to. It's still not a lot, but on the other hand, it's laser.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has the potential to be
to
be an enormous amount of shots, of course.
And of course, if we get some really good anti-air unit for the Bloodkreuz in perhaps a year or so, that would of course make amends for this, because now they still have the need to have more anti-air when you play Bloodkreuz, but so let's see, perhaps they can do some very cool zombie flyer or something like that, or I don't know, flying
I
zombies,
hope so, because I do think that the Bloodkreuz is one of those kind of keystone factions for the Axis. They have a very unique position and very unique flavor. And I think I think that at one point there was this kind of idea that the Bloodkreuz would kind of spin off and become their own separate block from the Axis, and that kind of really speaks to how unique they are.
Yeah, I wonder, would they be able to reanimate a Cthulhu monster? Because Bloodkreuz Cthulhu reanimated zombie-like, be something like that. Isn't that? Yeah, and flying. I think that would sell. I'll buy one.
Of course it would sell. So the question is they're going to do that. But we'll see.
Well, they must be doing the experiments somewhere in some hidden facilities.
Absolutely. Well, the big Cthulhu monsters, technically, rules-wise, are vehicles. So you could make a captured vehicle.
Yeah, now you're talking. I might just buy one of those and make those little zombie things. Yeah.
But that's not the only release for the Bloodkreuz. We also had the headquarters box.
Yes.
With the brand new Bloodkreuz command squad and 5 different heroes. 4 of these we've already seen before. And the 5th one is Wilfred, a brand new zombie hero.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Wilfred, isn't it?
No, sorry. Sorry. Wilfred. Wolfgang.
Yeah.
Wilfred is one of the
Gorillas.
gorilla heroes. That's true. Wolfgang.
Right.
And we've play tested that one a few times, and it looks like a nice kind of addition to the zombie heroes. It's it doesn't win you the game. It doesn't lose you the game. But it's a new cool zombie, and it's
Bring some more flavor.
Yeah.
So, and that box is really, really nice. I'm so irritated on myself. I did not buy it when Marek was up, because that's definitely one of the on my list. I couldn't see the possibilities to make my own. The monkey with the chainsaw, the hero. I elude me.
Jacob or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember which
yeah.
one is which.
I have had problems making him because I wanted to make all the heroes my own because they weren't available. So I've been trying to resculpt, and that one has eluded me. And I just didn't understand until Kalle told me, well, of course you take the extra Grenadier X, use that chainsaw. It's so logical, so simple.
Yeah.
It just stared me in the face and so, wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this Blutkreuz headquarter box is really nice, and I did not get it either because for the moment I'm not really playing zombies. I do have fairly big zombie Blutkreuz army, and I'm sure I will get this somewhere down the line because it's a really nice addition to the Blutkreuz army.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
We also finally see the release of the Fallschirmjäger Observer Squad, what we talked about extensively before.
Yeah.
So just
So
maybe not go into detail about it again, but we can just mention that it's been released. You can buy it now. And talking about the observers, we also have a new box for the USMC / the Desert Scorpions called the Specialists, and these are a 2-man observers squad team and a 2-man sniper team, or actually a 2-woman sniper team in this case.
Yeah. Super nice models.
Yeah, very nice models, and I think the thing I don't really like about this is the fact that I personally don't think that snipers are that good at the moment, mostly because of how stuff has changed with heroes and such. It's mostly because they usually just do 1 damage with each hit. So you can take out a specific heavy guy in a squad with a heavy weapon, or you can take out a commander in a headquarters. But they don't really do anything against heroes most of the time.
Not against heroes. They aren't that good, but you can use them to kill those machine guns or flamers or the medic of the command squad or whatever. To cause some havoc. I think they are a nice unit for the few points they cost. When you have those points left, you can just throw in a sniper team.
That's true. That's one of the big advantages with them, is that most sniper teams are pretty cheap.
I've played snipers quite a lot actually, and I haven't been that lucky with them. They sometimes they seem better when my opponent have them. I don't know why, but
I think we all have that
I
kind
actually
of
used them with some success on the Nordic in one of the games. They managed to do a reaction when my enemy he moved up one of his units that had flamers. Or at least one flamer guy towards the target. That was a bit, I did not want my guys to get killed. So my snipers, they made a reaction and they succeeded and they killed his flamer.
Very nice.
That's very nice.
So, yeah.
But you did play the Steel Guard.
Yes, I did.
And those snipers are one of the exceptions to the rules. Those are one of the, in my opinion, one of the most effective units in the Steel Guard.
They are good, but I did not play the Steel Guard snipers. I played a lot of other Steel Guards, but not the snipers this time.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but these new snipers here are only USMC. At least that's what they've been portrayed as. And that made me really irritated, because I thought these were going to be able to be used by the Scorpions and perhaps even the regular army.
Really? I thought they were Desert Scorpions as well?
Yeah, well, on the homepage of the Dust homepage, they're only USMC. And for me, not playing USMC, the only thing I don't play in the Allied, I just got, okay.
A correction. They don't show the card for the Desert Scorpion version, but if you read the text, it says that it comes with both a USMC faction unit card and a Desert Scorpion faction unit card. So they are for both. But the Observer Squad is only USMC. But the Sniper are both.
So still, that's a little bit downer, because why should I then buy Okay, if I combine with another person who wants the
I
observers.
can split the box if you don't want the observers.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
But that's we are going to come back to that point because I think that's a discussion we're going to hear more of in the future, unfortunately. So next item, the controller/assaulter chopper with the Chinese volunteers. So this is basically the same box that we had seen before with the chopper and the Chinese volunteers. The difference is that you now have the head swapping abilities. You can have them as the PLA Chinese volunteers. And you can also choose to run the assaulter helicopter as a controller helicopter instead. And this has been a very interesting unit because of just the skill set on the controller helicopter.
Yeah, it gives you a wonderful new option of how to use your choppers if you listen to certain type of individuals. Should we say anything more about this?
I don't know. It's
We
we've had some discussions both locally and online, and I don't know. I feel kind of confident that this is going to get an update.
On
Yeah,
the
but-
so
next
it works
errata.
properly.
But at the,
But
at
it's
the
cool.
moment, we can say that this helicopter is up in the air. So
Yeah, but it's a cool one. It's a cool
Yeah.
ability, and
Yeah.
it's been in the game since the release. This ability, but it hasn't really been used. There are other units that have the ability, but now you can really start combining and start like building your army with this in mind.
But yeah, but still, when you only have 3 choppers in an army, at least if you play a tournament army, and you use one of them to reactivate the others, you basically only have 2 choppers.
So you might as
And,
well just run a third.
Yeah, and then you have to. It has to stand still to have a real good shot on reactivating, and then it has no cover save, and then even the chopper goes down when it's just hovering.
I think
So,
the
don't know,
one thing is that if you have a red ace in another chopper and you want to reactivate her, I guess that could be the use case for it, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just see how
Yeah.
this shakes out. We haven't seen anyone play with it locally, so we haven't really had any hands-on experience with it yet.
No, and perhaps we should say at least that if it's not a very special tournament, we could almost guarantee you cannot reactivate more than once with the air ability if you're playing Sweden, and you have to treat it as the get moving you bunch of monkeys ability.
I do believe that's probably the intent, but
Yeah.
that's another discussion for another day. I
Yeah,
think.
of course,
I
but
think
just,
it's a good
for all
idea.
Swedes,
Yes, of
to-
course. So the final big new release for this period is the Lilith's Coven starter box, the first kind of traditional starter box for the Mythos block. So you get, traditional is kind of not correct because traditionally you get 1 hero, 1 vehicle, and 1 infantry squad. Here you get 1 hero with 2 models. That's not really completely kind of standard. And instead of a vehicle, you get a second infantry squad, which in this case is the Migo Assault Squad.
Yeah.
And the hero is Lilith, as the name implies, and you get also the Cultist Fire Squad, which are kind of similar stats-wise to the Chinese volunteers. And this is a very interesting box. You also get this kind of... as you did with the army box for the Mythos, you get this this kind of sheet with platoon rules for this starter box directly in the starter box. I really like this, and I hope they start doing this with all of the starter boxes from now on, so you directly get the new platoon in the starter.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And
I concur.
yeah, and just stats-wise and skill-wise, these are insane. You have Lilith with the kind of opportunity to turn between a standard kind of cultist human and monstrous close combat beast, and then turn back again once she attacks and gets healed. And you have the Migo Assault Squad, which is basically a monster version of the hammers. They have flying and they move fast and they jump in and they do close combat. They also have the ability to drop deadly spores around them. So kind of like the psychic scream from the big avatar in the army box, but in a very much smaller area. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of box and an interesting look into how this block might be progressing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be interesting now to see how the big monsters combine with the proper mythos, cultists and other units, because up until now people have been basically playing the monsters with mercenaries, and that's, you can do that, but for the most part I think it's a lot better to play them together, complete mythos army.
Yeah,
that's so true. And this is really visually for me so much better, with the exception of course of the one we had talked about earlier. I just so hope they will reshape that one day, because I could,
to each his own. Some people like it, some people don't.
Play that model and keep a straight face. And perhaps you shouldn't keep a straight face when you play. I don't know.
Maybe that's the whole point with it.
Yeah, perhaps it is.
You mean the monster Lilith with the
Yeah, and I've said
too many teeth.
Yeah, too many teeth is what I'm referring to here. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, moving along, perhaps.
Moving on,
we had a big update to the Enlist app. So that's where we saw a lot of changes to, like we said earlier, the Laser Grenadiers, for instance. We also had a kind of preview of one completely new unit that we haven't seen released before. We have seen some pictures of it. I think Paolo himself painted up one a few months ago. It's the Flying Banana.
Yeah,
the helicopter for the Allies, and I think, if I recall correctly, it has like a carry capacity of 18. So yeah, this is if you want to get a lot of infantry over the board fast, this is your unit to do it with.
Yeah, I so love this unit. It's in one aspect fucking totally useless, but it's visually extremely nice, and I guess you could find out some way of using it to just totally go, well,
bananas.
Yes, bananas. Yeah. I couldn't find a better word. So
maybe bring two of them.
Yes, and bring, like, because I don't know statistically. I take two of my bananas and I bring my 36 guys. I place the bananas inside my enemy's deployment zone. They of course break, but I somehow manage to land my troops in amongst them. I lose 1-2 here and there with the crosshair, but still my army is embedded with my opponent. If I have flamers and stuff like that, and I have 2 HQs standing in the back reactivating as soon as they drop out.
Yeah, I like this unit as well. It's I think it's a cool unit and super interesting game-wise as well, because you put a lot of eggs in the same basket if you place like 3 units in one of these. But at the same time, you are kind of forcing your opponent to react to it. You're forcing your opponent to fire, which means that other stuff will not get fired upon.
Yeah.
So
if you do that, you're kind of tying up the entire enemy army in one point, and then you have control of the rest, basically.
Yeah, it's going to cost you a bit, activation and putting a lot of eggs in the same basket wise, but at the same time you can sort of force the opponent to do stuff, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, could you perhaps even use this then? No, because the flying don't get to be wrecks. I'm thinking like perhaps you could drop people with the special service brigade, then fly the empty banana in and pick them up and try to rescue them from and remove. So because they are so vulnerable, but if you quickly get the banana there,
chopper!
Yes. Well, I don't know. Just
I'm seeing a new scenario coming up here.
Awesome, and that's already you can see why this unit is a success.
Yeah.
Finally, we've had a new platoon from the Endless War campaign for the SSU Steel Guard. So this is a platoon led by Wailo Molloy. And this is one that I think you, Magnus, would have liked to see before Nordic.
Yes, I would have, because that's kind of exactly the core of my army that I played. So that would have helped me a fair bit, I suppose. But anyhow.
But it's so good that the Steel Guards now get the help they so desperately need, because Guaylo is such a bad unit. So I'm glad they finally get some recognition.
And for those who haven't seen it, maybe we should tell them what this platoon actually does.
Well, you need, as Johannes said, Guaylo as the commander, and then you need, I think it's 3 units in total, and you have the choice of the anti-infantry squad, the anti-tank squad, and the Tesla squad, and it's the same choice for all the combat units. So it's a fairly expensive platoon. I don't know, the cheapest one of those are like 14 points or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, so you're if you're playing a 100-point army, it's going to be basically half your army minimum to have this platoon. But the advantage is that as long as Guaylo is alive, any Steel Guard unit in the platoon can re-roll any of the dice when they try to react, to make reactive attacks. So that drastically changes that mechanic. Basically, you can much more rely on them. Basically, I did some calculations the other day on exactly the odds. I can't remember the numbers, but it's a lot better.
Because that's what I feel is one of the best ways to deal with Steel Guard. Usually, is just to surround them and swarm them. And with this platoon ability, that's a dangerous proposition suddenly, where it really wasn't before.
Yeah, it gives the SSU player some options, basically, a different way to play them. You don't have to outlast the opponent, which can be difficult if you are a bit, have some bad luck with the saves and they die too quickly. Now you can, react and kill stuff before they can kill you. So I would say it probably gives them some even more staying power. Basically, it's a lot. Yeah, like you say, it's a lot more difficult to swarm them.
Yeah, because when you're fewer models than the opponents, you usually want to wait out the opponent to see what is he or she doing, and where will I be attacked. So, and now you can, because now you're not afraid. Okay, I let you come. Now I have to do something about it. So I reactivate with my. And I think this is very, very good.
I guess the downside is that, every time you make a reaction, your unit is not going to move. It's going to stay in place. And the Steel Guards are fairly slow, so usually you want to move and attack with them. And if you only react, you will not be moving. So you're not going to use this ability every time. You still have to make careful decisions about it. But I think it's a nice platoon. I like it.
Yeah, it's very suited for the army. So it's very good.
And that's basically everything that has been released. But if we take a quick look into the future, there's been a release of the 2018 catalog. So this is, I think, most of the units, but probably not everything that is going to be released in 2018. I think the most interesting thing that I found about this is that it's hints at a completely new structure for all the different products. So we have seen this now starting off with the Blutkreuz HQ box. We've seen the army box for the Mythos, and this is kind of something that will be going forward. So there's going to be 4 different types of products basically for the game moving forward. We have the individual unit boxes, of course. We have the starter box sets that we've seen that are basically, like I said before, 1 hero, 1 unit, and 1 walker. You also have the army box sets, which are going to be approximately 2 different infantry units, 1 support weapon, and 1 walker, medium to heavy walker, or as with the starter boxes, you basically almost always get a light walker. And you also get the HQ box sets, which is 1 command squad and between 1 and 5 heroes. And this is going to be released for most of the factions going forward. And this is very interesting. This definitely helps get a kind of overview of what you can expect to get. So if you are completely new to the game, then pick a faction and buy one of each of these packs, and then you're off to the races, basically.
Yeah, I think this is a really good way of doing it, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, it's gonna, and I'm guessing for a lot of guys out there that has been playing for a while, it's gonna be,
Yeah.
if you really want something, you will probably have to buy a couple of models like heroes that you already own, or even units, as in with the observers and so on.
Like a
So
very good.
you will have some duplicates.
Yeah, a very good example is just this new Blutkreuz hero box, because there's one entirely new hero
yeah.
and one command squad, and then there's 4 different heroes that's all been released before.
Yeah, so you're basically paying and buying heroes that you already own.
Yeah.
But still, those heroes at the moment are very difficult to get hold of. They are in like old boxes that are out of production, out of stock. They are in old campaign boxes that are, some of them are just impossible to find. So they need to do something, and to keep it, I mean, to keep the range somewhat manageable, I think this is a really good idea. It makes it a solid line, like, okay, now I want to expand my army, I want some officers or whatever, just, you know, pick up the headquarters box.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. As long as we don't get there, it gets too. You always seem, if you get the feeling that as soon as I want to buy something, I get something extra that I don't want. If you get too much into that, then you could get irritated.
No, but I mean, it's for us, it's a problem because we have been playing this game for quite some time, so we already own quite a lot of those models. But for new players, this is
and
really
I
good.
think that I don't know if this is true, but my feeling is that the studio is currently making a big push to get new players into the game.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very good strategy for doing that. Then, of course, you do risk pissing off some old veterans. And I think this is a calculated move. And hopefully, I'm thinking that most of the people are feeling that, well, I get these extra, but I'm really only paying for those I need, and these extra I can use for conversion bits or something like that. I think that's what they want, at least.
Yeah, but at the same time, they don't have to do that. I mean, they can. I agree with you totally. These boxes are super good for the new players, and they are super good for many occasions. But since they do this, that doesn't hinder them from just releasing some of these things as well in single stock. I mean, like, if you buy directly from the studio, you can buy just the observers or just the snipers or something like that. Because, well, it's nice to get extra bits sometimes, but sometimes you get bits that you basically almost throw away. So then you perhaps pay. I would be, if I could use, for instance, the snipers that we talked about earlier, for the Desert Scorpions, and I could buy just them from the studio, I would pay probably 5 or 10% extra than half the price of the box. I mean, if the box was $10, I would pay I would be prepared to pay more than just 5 to get the snipers. I could pay 7 or something to get the snipers, because the other things would just be lying around. It would just be waste of space.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
it's also a question of logistics. I mean, they need to keep the number of products down a bit, because otherwise it's like retailers will not be able to stock everything if it's a million boxes. They need to kind of.
But and you should know, you've been in the retail business.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what it's like. It's actually a big problem sometimes when you're a retailer. And I mean, if you're looking back at the Fantasy Flight days of Dust, if you wanted the contents of this new headquarters box, you would have had to buy the headquarter, the unit, and possibly a hero box, and then maybe also 1 or 2 campaign boxes to get everything there, the models. Now you can get everything in just one box.
And if you look at the other side of the coin, if we look towards the vehicles instead of the infantry units, we are again starting to get almost all new vehicles coming out now with multiple versions in the same box.
Awesome.
And that...
Thank you, Dust Studio.
Yes, and that is exactly the same idea. Really. Because, well, I pay for this. I only want to use this vehicle with these weapons. Why should I pay for these extra weapons? You could
but
I know it's kind of a hard point.
Yeah,
but
it's 5% instead of 50%. So it's and as a little. An extra weapon you can put on the base of your vehicle and make some nice, interesting scenarios. I'm not buying that for 5 seconds. And the thing is, I'm agreeing with you guys. I'm just saying, yeah, they've done something good, but just because they did something good doesn't mean they have to do something bad in another part of the system. They can still be good there as well. And I don't think that this catalog will be. I hope this will not be the total catalog by any means. Because
no, I really don't think so.
No, but you said it before. If I mince words here, but the thing, what I'm thinking about now is that it's only the USMC in the catalog that has an army box.
That's
None
true.
of the other ones has it, and I desperately hope that all the others will get an army box as well.
They probably will, if not this year, maybe next year. I mean, everything takes time, so.
Yeah. But I mean, for instance, we want to see more. I think we want to see more Desert Scorpions on the table. So those should be quick to get an army box to get more armies out there quickly as soon as the infantry.
That's true, because the only thing in this catalog that we've seen from the Desert Scorpions is the starter box, which of course is going to be interesting, because then you finally get the new hero and one new unit of infantry. But if you want to field multiple infantry, then you can't just buy multiple starter sets. That's just silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm sure they will get the regular stuff eventually.
Of
anyways.
course. Sooner rather than later would be preferable, but yeah.
Yes, we want more stuff now.
and I just like to point out two of my very, very favorites, of course, in this catalog, and that's Magda and the Flamingo the Obliterator, the Wrecker Obliterator. Those two, I would be surprised if I don't buy them this first day they reach the shelves, both of them.
I say same for me with the Flamingo. I love that walker. It's just the name. It's a walker with 3 flamethrowers, and it's the flame and go.
Yeah.
That's what you do with it. You flame and you go.
Yes. And I don't know if we should say anything about that woman there standing with the machine gun.
Magda, probably.
Yeah, probably. Do we have any ideas of her skills, perhaps, or something that she will perhaps do something special with the Flamingo and get it even more?
Since she is going to be in a box with the walker, I'm guessing that at least she is going to be able to pilot specifically that walker, like we see with Louisa with the Demolisher, which is also going to get a new version. So at the moment you can only buy Louisa and Demolisher as the elite kind of special premium version, but now we're going to get the standard kind of primed and premium and everything.
Now it's just and also the painting on the Flamingo, even the name, the painting, but the painting scheme in itself, it's just something with it that it draws me in with the. I even get more excited about the shape and the color of the walker than the ladies in the picture. I know this is perhaps something I shouldn't say aloud, but that walker, I always loved the Flamluther, but this one with the we all have our different preferences. Some people like ladies, some people like other things.
Yes, that's okay.
Walker,
we don't judge you.
No, please don't.
We should probably make a few other kind of dips into this catalog as well. There's someone like you, Ludde, for being an SSU player, mainly. I think there are some things in here that will probably interest you. Like, how do you feel about the Interceptor jet plane, for instance?
Well, 2 or 3 perhaps. I don't know.
Only.
Oh yes, no. That's I've been waiting for a proper Russian airplane from the day one, and that's going to be amazing. Of course,
for me personally, the big question comes that obviously the SSU will have airplanes now, and they already have helicopters. The Allies, they've had airplanes for quite some time, and now they have a helicopter in the Flying Banana and actually in the Seahorse as well. So when are the Axis gonna have some helicopters? That's what I'm asking. I want to see some Axis helicopters.
Yeah, we might see that at some point in the future, but yeah, we don't know. I think one other thing that I know that a lot of Axis people kind of noticed was we don't really have an image, but one of the boxes as a separate version, as a separate loadout for that, the Königswotan.
Yes.
This has been kind of a kit bash version. I've seen people who take in Königsluter and put on the kind of bunker laser guns on the side of it, and I'm kind of imaging that's basically what this is going to be. And well, you don't really need more powerful lasers than you already have with the standard Wotan, but just to get that on an Armor 7 vehicle chassis.
I don't know. My Axis army always need more powerful lasers. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Well, and now when you have things like the Cthulhu monsters, and when you get big walking robots with the Japanese that we are probably going to get around Christmas or early next year or something.
I'm actually totally okay with your army, Johannes, and also maybe especially Roger. He don't need any more bigger lasers. That's completely fine if you don't get them.
No, I think Roger always need more lasers. I liked him more when he was more lasering than when he was dropping. No, but then, sorry if I'm too picky now, Johannes, but apparently it's that type of Sunday. That Königswotan will be a Type 6. That's not a 7.
It could be, yeah.
Because the Lothar, Lothar is as a Type 6. So, and
that would make we don't really have any more information except for the name at this point.
We haven't really seen
anything. No, but I know. Okay. I just know. Right. Sorry. No, but and then I sincerely hope at least so, because it will be devastating. It will wreck anything in its path. But being a Type 6 would make it easy to knock out.
Yeah.
So it would be just that perfect balance. It still will be a huge threat. It will be get people frustrated like hell, but it would be just about right if it's a Type 6 and all those 4 lasers and shit like that. So.
Absolutely. There are still a ton more stuff we could talk about in this catalog. There's one specific thing I want to bring up, and that is the upcoming headquarters box for the mercenaries. Because this is something that I think a lot of people are going to be happy about. There's almost all new models in this. It's one new command squad. It's a completely new hero. It's Louisa that we've only seen as the elite version, and it's finally a way to get Emma if you haven't been able to get her from tournament support or stuff like that.
Is there anyone who doesn't have Emma?
I don't know. I've heard rumors of it.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, Emma is a really good model, and it's nice to be able to get her if you don't already own her. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, and like a lot of other stuff in the game, the mercenaries are getting fleshed out. They are getting some more options, and they are feeling more and more like a complete army.
Yeah, that's so true.
And just the fact that you are now adding several new vehicles and a command squad, that makes it so you can run this as a complete army without anything else, and it definitely will work. It might not be. We'll see when everything is released. It might not be competitive tournament-wise, but it will work.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, there's also been a new version of the FAQ and errata document, and there's a ton of stuff in this document. There's a lot of stuff that's been added or changed or just explained better. And we're not going to touch on absolutely everything because it's a long list, but we are going to mention a few specific things that we thought would be interesting to talk about. Like, for instance, the change to the height advantage rule. And this is definitely a change. It makes the height advantage rule kind of more symmetrical and a little bit simpler to explain.
More streamlined.
So the way it works now, if you have height advantage when you are attacking, that is, the attacker is higher than the defender, then the defender has to re-roll their successful saves. If it's on the other hand, if the defender is higher up than the attacker, then they get to re-roll their missed saves.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's basically it.
Yep.
One thing that you should mention is stuff that already makes you re-roll, like, for instance, radiation from Winterchild. Those kind of cancel each other out, basically. So radiation has no specific advantage compared to height advantages in this case.
Yeah, but that feels okay.
Yeah, and I like this. This is actually exactly how I've used, how I explained height advantage when I've been demoing the game to people, because it just makes it simpler to explain it, especially for kids, I think.
Yes, streamlining.
Yeah, basically. Another thing that's interesting, a change to a specific unit's weapons, the Nina. Which had RPGs, the rocket propelled grenades, but before they didn't have the grenade rule, but now they do.
Yeah, wasn't it? I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think the tropical version actually had it printed on the card, but the non-tropical one missed it or something like that.
Yeah, it could be.
That could be. I think it was just typo, basically.
It could be a simple oversight. Yeah.
And but it's good to know for anyone playing the Nina, and I think it's a fairly common walker amongst SSU players because it's a good one.
Yeah, at least one you should have in there if you have 3 or 4 of them.
And especially for those who use the chopper with the airlifter, so they come in with the Nina, then that's one that you usually see there.
And I'd just like to pass off to Martin that I'm sorry beforehand that I hadn't read this one, so you were right when we played last time. I'm sorry for arguing. If you're listening, that is.
Another kind of big change is the change to the spy skill. And this has actually been changed quite a lot.
Yeah, it has.
Because before, when you had a spy, they had to go alone. They couldn't join any other unit. And when you activated it, you had to roll the dice and see if they entered the board. Now you have a lot more options. You can choose to join a squad. That means you can't use the spy skill to just appear anymore. But the spy is a bit more protected by the squads surrounding it, basically. You could also just choose to enter the board normally by yourself. You can also choose to not roll the dice for the spy skill, so you can stay off the board until you feel like, oh, now's the perfect moment to strike.
Yeah.
So makes the spies a lot more versatile.
Very many more options now, which makes it even harder to use it. As before, you always knew what to do with the spy. You just had one target. And at Nordic now, we're coming to that later. But I used the priest with the assault rangers. The one with the 2 flamethrowers and a lot of shotguns and stuff. And just to try this out, and since they also had the skill, the platoon skill to have scout, it was really, really interesting to see him rushing 4 squares and then assaulting with flamers and grenade and all. Well, but unfortunately they were a little bit too powerful actually, so the balance is not good with that. I don't recommend you to put the priest with those rangers. Have a weaker squad and use the flamethrowers by themselves, because I overkill things
exactly.
when I
those flamethrowers, they tend to kill stuff anyway, so they don't really need priests to kill even more.
Yeah,
and I suppose it's very, very rare for you to reach like 2 or 3 enemy units on that move. You reach 1 possibly, and you kill that stuff really hard. but it's overkill. So.
Yeah, but when you face a big bunch of gorillas, that of course could be the case, because then they have lives left. Because even if you have like pestered them with shotgun shells and flamethrowers and everything, Marcus or whatever the hero's name is for that instance still has a few left. So that
can be a pain.
That's the only reason when I see you should combine them.
But this is a nice update to Spy. It makes it more interesting. You have more choices, and it also, one thing that kind of bugged me is that some of the spies in the game, they also have the loner skill.
Mm-hmm.
And before this change, it was really...
Why?
Yeah, why? Because Spy said you can't join a unit, and
Yeah.
Loner said you can't join a unit.
Yeah.
So
You definitely can't join the unit.
Yeah,
You hear me? You can't join.
but now there are a few spies without the loner skill, so you can use them in different ways.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's fun.
Also been a slight kind of explanation, a clarification on flying and how you kind of calculate how you move with the flying skill. And I think one of the things that's been problematic with the flying skill is that, well, really it's not really supposed to be called flying, because that makes people kind of have the wrong associations. I think you probably know this better than I do. In version 1 this was called jump.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes more sense.
It actually does. You have to think of it like that. They aren't really flying; they are jumping forward or backward or wherever. But anyway, it doesn't really matter the name. Now we have some clarification on how this works, and it all feels very logical. That they are, really fast. They can move from ground level to the top of the building very quickly, and they don't have to pay for the vertical movement, and that's good.
Yeah, and when Johannes talked about jumping in the first version of the game, I got this nostalgic, wonderful feeling, and I know people thought it was stupid, but I loved when you could jump with the allied walkers.
Yeah, the Mickeys and stuff.
Yeah.
They had the jumping skill. It was hilarious.
Yes, they jumped over the
Hilarious.
rubbles, and then the Germans got their surprise when, "Whoo, I'm jumping here." Perhaps a few of you now know, I have this big love for battle mech. That, of course, just seeing a big mech jumping, it's beautiful. I wish
it was a lot of fun, but for me, I'm kind of happy that they don't jump anymore, because it was just too, I don't know.
But I would have
too comical.
Yeah, and I know it would probably be pricey as hell, but I would love to see an allied, perhaps Type 3, Type 2 walker jumping. You could get something like that with, because that could be just fun playing if one could do that. Even if it's just once per game, I can jump 4 squares or something as movement instead, or something.
Like one use rocket. Rocket engine.
I just would love that. Sorry.
Basically, you have those kind of airdrop rockets for the Luftwaffe walkers. So if you don't airdrop them, you just walk in with them, and then you can use those to make a one-time jump instead.
Yes, something like that. But for me, it has to be the allies that does it. For I don't know why, but
this
is
old school like that.
Yeah.
We also have YLO, or really it's basically limited weapons. How they a little clarification on how they work, and there's been a bit of confusion from some people. He has 4 rockets. Does that mean I can use all 4 at the same time? Does that mean I only use one of the boxes, or do I use all 4, and can I combine them? And
it's been, this discussion has popped up a couple of times before, and basically it's because it's not stated very clearly in the rules. So this is a good one to state that each model, whatever model it is, can only fire 1 limited weapon per attack. To fire more, it basically needs the volley skill.
Yeah,
that's it. That's what this clarification means, and this is a good one, because there are not too many heroes that have this kind of limited weapons, but there are a lot of planes and helicopters and stuff, vehicles. So this is a good one.
And just to clarify, just that you can in the case of Guilo, you can only use one rocket at a time.
Yeah, exactly, because he does not have the volley skill.
Yes. The Florentine platoon has also been a bit clarified, because earlier the verbiage in the Condor book could be interpreted that even airplanes got the ability to kind of rearm themselves in the middle of a fight.
Seems like some people thought that the plane could rearm itself. It seems kind of weird, and I remember when we discussed the new planes when they came out and we saw the Florentine platoon, at least I dismissed this idea fairly quickly, but it's good to see now that it's clear what can be done and not. That's good.
And finally, a bit more clarifications on reactive attacks. What you can do and what you can't do when you get a reactive attack, and exactly when the reactive attack happens. So you get, in the FAQ document, you get a kind of list of different triggering actions, and when exactly in that sequence the reactive attack happens. And raid is added to this, which is important.
Yeah.
Because before it was that you could kind of interpret it that the reactive attack happened after the raiding unit had attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a reaction that happens after instead of before the attack in most other cases.
Yeah, and I mean that wouldn't be like a problem, I would say, game mechanics wise, but it takes away some of the fun part of the game, some of the interesting stuff where you try to shoot the enemy before he shoots you. So this is also good.
Yeah, and I think just balance wise, because if that was the case, then raiding would be much more powerful, and there would be not very much kind of risk to it.
Exactly, it still needs to be a bit risky business sometimes.
I understand this, and I understand why they do the rules, because they allowed raid as a rule, and I think the clarification in the rules now is better, but I still think it feels wrong. Raid should be some sort of exception to this, I think, because why should I can reactive fire on someone when he stands 3 squares away from me behind a building, because I have a reactive fire for him there, but I can't see him, so I can't shoot him. But I can't shoot him when he arrives just in front of me, even though I could have reacted to him. It's just something to me. It's just, I would have loved it to be that you reactive fire when they arrive at your...
that's how it is now.
With raid, but there are still situations when you use either charge or fire, for example.
Monkeys come charging me, and I'm allowed to reactive fire them, but I can't see them because when they have moved half their movement, they're behind a tree.
Yeah, that is true.
And that annoys me. I'm sorry. I'm very irritated on that. But
yeah, in that example, the gorillas, they have a movement of 3-5, and they want to charge. But if you want to react to them, you react exactly when they have moved 3 steps, not the complete 5 steps. Which means that in many cases, you can't see them at that point, or the gorilla player can just make sure that he moves in such a way that you can't see them on that 3rd step. So it gets a bit weird sometimes. I also have some hopes that this will be updated someday. But anyway, this clarification as it is now, it's a lot better.
It's definitely a lot better.
And it also removes the ability to use skills like ace. So, I mean, reactive attacks, in my view, are probably the most complex sequence in the game, because you have an activation within an activation, and how does this work, when, things like that. And to remove skills like ace and it just makes things easier, simpler.
Yep.
The ace skill gets toned down a little bit. If you like those heroes, they aren't quite as good as they used to be, possibly, but for the greater good, I think this is a good change as well.
Yeah, I think this is just such a slight degrading on the ace skill, so I don't think it's that There's probably someone out there who used this specifically to just use the ace people to reactive fire with, and I'm sorry for you guys, but to me it sounds like it's not a big thing. And I know we shouldn't have talked about the passenger thing, but I just have to put in a few words because I've said other things beforehand and on other shows. First off, I think the new passengers, how you disembark from a vehicle when it's destroyed, is very good. It's very clear. It makes it better. Makes it all better. And that's not the discussion we should have here today, I know, but this signals that you should be able to disembark from a chopper on 9 squares. So anyone who knows that, who heard me be very aggressively negative to that, because I think that is basically shit, because it makes choppers too powerful. To my knowledge, it always says that the passengers disembark on the square below the chopper, but I acknowledge that this text here gives strength to the argument that you should disembark on 9 square. And just to be, I see this.
Yeah, that's actually something that I think should be addressed in a future FAQ or errata or whatever. A bit clarified there. There's been some confusion, some different views on how to disembark and also how to embark.
Yeah.
Transports in general and maybe specifically the helicopters, they are a bit different basically, so hopefully that will get addressed sometime in the future. We'll see.
And that's it for the rules discussions.
Yes.
Basically. So
now to
something completely different.
Yes, thank you.
Let's go. Let's. How about a status update for our contest that we're running? Yay! The terrain building contest, and we've had quite a lot of very interesting entrants already. There's still time for people to enter. For those who don't have it ready in their minds, the final date for entering this contest is Friday, the 27th of April. So there's almost 3 weeks left, and if you want to read more about this contest and join it, go to dustwarjournals.com, and there's an image there. Win a resin Nyarlathotep model on the right side of the page. And we've had some really cool entrants so far.
Yes.
Yeah, people have been coming up with really cool stuff. I mean, both the actual terrain pieces, they look awesome.
Definitely.
People have been writing background stories, inventing rules that are really fun and interesting, and I'm really looking forward to actually play with these.
Yes, definitely.
Should we do
sorry
like,
guys, I have to do some copies of the stuff you've made, try to build something very similar and play with this.
And,
they are awesome.
And that's a very good kind of badge of honor there. Just to.
Yeah.
And I think, should we try to do like a big, huge scenario with all of these things crammed in?
Ooh, everything at once. I don't know. Maybe that's going too crazy, but maybe that's the kind of point with the Cthulhu stuff anyway.
Yes,
going
exactly.
crazy.
Over the top is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're super nice, and I'd like to just say though that a certain Victor, when I first saw the first picture of the house, I started drooling. This will, of course, not affect anything, but great work. They're all great, but
that's one of the things. I'm actually very happy at this point that we've chosen to do a random draw from everyone, because some of these things I just couldn't pick between for my life. There's so many cool stuff, so much cool stuff going on here. Yeah, it's amazing. Just keep it up, and one of the things I really like also is that, of course, this is a contest. You get the opportunity to win something really cool. But just the fact that every entrance so far have actually already won in a way, because they've made something that's really, really cool that they get to keep for themselves and play with. So that's, I just love to see what people come up with. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and just maybe a quick reminder for anyone who hasn't really looked into this that, like Johannes said, the contest, it's almost 3 weeks until it closes. So you have some time left, and there's a random draw. So it doesn't really matter exactly what you build or how good or bad it looks. Build something, send us pictures, and read more about it on the website, and you can win.
Yeah, you had a prize there. It was something small.
I can't remember.
What
was it now? Can you remind us, Johannes?
Yeah, the grand prize for this contest is the limited edition resin Nyarlathotep model, directly from Dust Studios.
Oh,
so this is $88 worth.
Yes, and if you don't want your prize, we can use it for you. There's no problem, you know. You can.
Yeah,
always...
I'm sure you could build terrain out of it.
Yeah, I can smash it with a hammer and make several terrain pieces of it. That's fine by me. Sorry.
Right, cool stuff. Keep it up, guys. Build more stuff.
Yeah, we love to see what you come up with. Should we do a little kind of tournament talk also? Talk a little about stuff about the recent Dust Nordic, for instance. I can't really say too much about it because, I was one of the head guys running it, so I'm kind of biased. But
but in the beginning of this podcast, you stipulated that it was a success, and since this is your podcast, I don't know what we can say more than that. So, we're all in agreement here, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I'm happy. I'm happy with the turnout. I'm happy with how we managed to get a lot of the kind of logistical, kind of practical issues sorted. It seems that time worked out. We were like 20 minutes late over an entire day of the original schedule. So things kind of worked, and I hope that people had a good time for the most part. Of course, there's always tensions when you're playing a tournament. Of course, there is. It's kind of a part of the course. But nobody came to blows, so that's a win in my book.
That's true. Do you want to go first, Magnus?
Before
we come to blow.
It was a good tournament, and I think everyone had a really good time. We had Marek from War Factory there, so we can buy some more plastic narcotics and
MDF. Don't forget the MDF.
Yeah, MDF. Ooh, that's important.
Get that burnt wood smell.
Oh, yes. I had that for a week in the apartment.
So all in all, it was a really good time for me. And I also know a couple of the other guys that talked about this. That maybe it was either two big armies. We played 120 points plus faction bonus. Or maybe we should have more time for each game.
Yeah, and, this is a point that we discussed quite heavily before the tournament. Just the amount of points and the amount of time for each match.
Yeah, and it's always a balance. I mean, you want to play bigger games because it's cool and you can bring more cool stuff, but it also takes a longer time, and it's also different players. Some players need more time, they think more, just play slower or faster, and it's...
And don't forget the mats. Playing on bigger armies on 2 mats instead of 3 mats is also something that is...
it changes the dynamic and
speed as well.
Yeah.
For some it makes it slower, and some it makes it faster.
So this is there's really no easy or quick or right answer to these questions. You just have to make a decision on where to go. So
that's true.
I'm guessing the same discussion will come up next time. It usually does. And,
it usually does, yes. Personally, I had a few very interesting acknowledgements about my armies and stuff like that, because I've been claiming that Soldier 2s aren't broken. I will still claim that they aren't broken, but what really hit home to me on the Nordic tournament was that I need more time, more turns to outmaneuver, outfight some type of armies. And especially higher number of points on closer surfaces and then less game time, only playing 2 turns a game, that really hinders the Soldier 2. So I think if you have a tournament where you probably won't be playing more than 2 turns, Soldier 2 can't handle it. I acknowledge that. But still, a few of the games I lost, had those gone to 8 turns, I think the outcome could have been different. I had a shitty tournament as well, of course, for many reasons, because I had overexerted myself beforehand. The Sunday I woke and I haven't felt that bad for ages, for years. The awfulness I felt when I woke on the Sunday, because my brain was totally, and my body was
too old for
fucked
this
up.
shit.
Yeah. Well, too much stress beforehand about the tournament, about the job, about my personal life and situation like that. It all crescended, and I shouldn't have had 6 guests in my house. It was lovely. I had nothing wrong towards them, even though they probably didn't appreciate me on the Sunday morning. I think they got a really bad start of the day. Not as bad as mine, I promise you guys. So if anyone took offense, I'm sorry. But just the more important thing for gaming wise is some armies definitely has more problem with a fast tournament or with a quick tournament, with short time tournaments.
Yeah, I distinctly have the same feeling for my army that I played. Mostly Steel Guard. They are kind of slow, even though I used choppers, but you need, 1 or 2 extra turns than most of the games lasted.
And that's a very interesting point, actually, because there has been a lot of discussion, both locally in our group, but I've seen it on Facebook and I've seen it on other places as well. The fact that people feel that the Soldier 1s are overpowered, that they just go in and they massacre everything. But if it's true what you say, then maybe the big problem is just time, basically, that you need to outlast the Soldier 1 armies, and if in a tournament setting where there is limited time, you don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I felt in a couple of games. I won 4 games, I lost 3 games, so that's fair.
Okay.
That's okay. I don't have any problem with that. And I won a couple of really tight games that I could have lost, basically. But I also lost a couple of really tight games that I felt that, okay, the pendulum is kind of swinging back for me now.
Mm-hmm.
The next turn, I'm going to crush him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then time was finished.
Yeah.
So I lost with just a few points, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's the tournament format, so you have to kind of calculate for that, I guess. But
and that's actually one of the things we discussed, because we had 100 minutes for the matches. And we had kind of go back and forward to kind of decide. And I think everyone was kind of in agreement that the thing we wanted most is to play the most number of matches possible. So everyone felt like they got kind of their money's worth by going to the tournament. But that meant that we had to go from what we originally had planned to be 2-hour matches back to 140. Mm-hmm. And that was maybe a mistake in retrospect, or that's something that we should absolutely kind of
sorry, breaking in now. There was no mistake from the tournament organizers on this point, and saying like that, it just makes you feel like it was but no, you arrange a tournament, you set the standards. This is the player's responsibility to realize. I made 2 mistakes with my army, and the one was that I did not realize the time limits. I was building an army to play 6 or 7 turns at least, and imagining I would be able to do that. That is my fault. Then I imbalanced it against aircraft. That's also my fault. So I don't think that was nothing wrong. You just have to make people aware that don't bring a slow army to a fast tournament if you care for winning games or not. Now, I had 2 games that I lost that I had actually very, very fun playing. Both were against Bloidcroys and Apes, and they fucked me both of those two armies, and it was, yeah.
And just to talk about that, a Blutkreuz army with a lot of apes actually managed to get in the top 5.
Yeah.
So it's not that you could not succeed with that type of army, but it is telling that, well, maybe not, but it is interesting that the top 3 were Soldier 1 based armies. Mm-hmm. That is true. But if you just talk about the kind of distribution of armies, one thing that I've been kind of touting on Facebook and so is just I'm so impressed by the diversity of armies that people brought to this tournament, because cool. No single sub-faction in the game was represented more than twice. Mm-hmm. With 20 players. Yeah. That's very impressive.
That is. It's very good. It was one of the real big highlights of the tournament, and even those who had played the same had different armies.
Oh, yes.
So it was still diverse, so to speak, and it was... so that is a very, very good... shout out to all the players. Congratulations, all the players, Dust Nordic, because how great that you all thought so different. I love that.
Absolutely. Did you have any specific kind of things happen in any of your matches that kind of stand out?
Good question. Good question.
I had several. Some I won't mention because people think I'm an asshole because I got irritated at least once. But so let's leave that to I think I sorted that out on a private.
For me, I would probably say the game against Essa. Very nice to face you again, Essa. It's been a while now, and our games are always interesting. And in that game, I managed to reactivate Guaylo and his boys to rush in where there was a lot of Endak guys standing inside a building, and they killed almost everything. And then Guaylo just stood his ground, and almost everything that possibly could shoot at him tried to kill him, but they failed. He just refused to die.
That's one of those movie moments.
Yeah, exactly. He just
Yeah, and I don't know if Jens is listening, but I just like to give a special shout out because I have had a lot of games against Jens during the past year here now, or years perhaps, and they've always been fun. He's a very good guy to play against. And his army with his monkeys hammered me in a way I shouldn't enjoyed, but I must say, even the way he treated me, it was a sheer joy playing against him as always. So I like to. That was the highlight of the tournament, was the game against Jens, even though he molested me with his monkeys.
Yeah, he did really well. I think it was Jens playing against Marek who managed to kill one of the Cthulhu spawn in self-defense close combat with apes. And they killed one of the Cthulhu spawn. I think that was Jens who did that. So that was one of those things that I saw that was just, that's nice. And also I want to make a special shout out to our good friend Ben. Yeah. Ben Langen, who came all the way from the United States, but via Germany, so to speak. I think he had a very good time. Didn't do too well in the tournament, but he had a fantastic army, and he actually managed to win our kind of most coveted prize, the most appreciated army prize.
Yeah, it was a lovely army.
Yeah,
definitely.
Super nice.
So very, very cool, that kind of East European kind of forest camouflage. He even brought his own display board with some terrain and trees and stuff. Yeah,
it's really cool. Put some work into that.
And he was extra friendly afterwards, even though perhaps that's not the way I should start this sentence, I realize now, because he had no place to sleep the last night, so he followed me home and actually slept on the extra bed here in my apartment. But that made us watch movies all night. I think we watched not completely both of the Ghost in the Shell, but also the Killer, the Shoyun Fat movie. So it was
I love that one.
Yeah. So the ending of the tournament I was ecstatic when I woke on Monday and I just realized I just watched 3 of the best movies I've known. It just was just great. So thank you, Ben, very much, and we're really looking forward to seeing you in Poland. You will help us with another little dicey problem, one could say, in Poland, and that is for some people to realize that.
Yeah, there's some to know and some to find out.
Yes.
All right, so let's go to mail call. We got a question on Patreon from Christoph, and Christoph is asking, kind of army building questions here. He writes, I have run the same army against the same opponent and the same opposing force a number of times on similar maps and had drastically different outcomes. And with this in mind, there's a few army questions. So, one, how do you best evaluate your army's strength without the random outcomes of a game impacting your impression of a build's quality? 2, do you build your armies with specific scenarios or maps in mind, or do you design them to succeed in different settings? And number 3, what are some army builds or combinations that you thought would perform well but didn't? And there we kind of come back to this whole kind of thing that you have to kind of, especially in a tournament setting, where you build for the specific conditions surrounding that tournament if you want to succeed. So if you want to generalize this, I don't really know if you can, because it's very, very different depending on what you want to get out of it. But if you just go for the first question here, how do you evaluate your army strength, disregarding the randomness of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's on to a good start here with playing the same army several times. And yeah, playing against the same opposition could also be nice to get a better feel for it. Was this like a normal outcome or not? But also, of course, playing it against different opposing force, so you know how it behaves or works, what it's good against and what it's bad against. Because, I mean, it's basically impossible to build an army that covers everything, that can do everything well. You have to make some tough choices. For me, I try as best as I can during each game to sort of quickly calculate what is the like statistical outcome of this. If I move here and attack, how many people in the enemy unit should I kill? And I try to keep that in mind over the game as well, to get a feel, did I roll very good this game? Did I roll very bad? And also for my opponent, I try to keep that in mind, to get a feel. It's difficult. You won't get like a proper number for it, of course, especially if you're playing a tournament. You won't really have time, but still, I keep those numbers in the back of my mind to have a feel for it. And also, some roles are super important. I'm talking about reactivations and stuff like that. So if you use your officer to reactivate, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 times during a game, how many of those did succeed? What was did you succeed like half? Or whatever depending on how many action you spend, of course. But to get a feel for it. If you try 6 times and only succeed 1, you obviously rolled badly. If you try 6 times and succeed all of them or 5 of them, you rolled very well. So you have to sort of keep that in mind.
And that's also kind of personal preference thing, because different armies and different units play in a different way depending on their weapon stats. Like that's one of the reasons where I traditionally have played Axis, because they usually attack with a lot of dice. They don't do that much damage per hit, but they have a lot of dice, and that means I can usually do at least some damage, as opposed to, for instance, the SSU, where, well, generally speaking, they have fewer dice, but they do more damage per dice.
Yeah.
And that's not my style, because that's one of the things that I do to kind of mitigate the random factor. I would rather have a good chance to do some damage than like 1 in 3 chance to do a ton of damage.
Yeah, I've always had hard playing those multiple HQs to that. There are people that can get that to work, that they have just 1, 2, 3 big hard-hitting things that they reactivate. I get so frustrated when that reactivation doesn't materialize. So I actually have played quite a lot of games also without HQs. So that's of course another interesting thing to ponder. Should one how much what do you want how do you want your armies to react on the gaming surface?
And at its heart, this game is all about the dice. The dice is what kind of makes or breaks the outcome of it. And it's how you kind of mentally adjust to the dice. That's how you use your units. But everything comes down to the dice in the end. So you have to kind of have your inclination towards it in some way.
Yeah. But of course, you I don't think you feel you need long range when you play on only 2 mats, but we've been into this before. I think when you get the 3 mats and stuff like that, it's more interesting with the range situation. Something that really struck me, which makes me a little bit curious after the Nordic tournament, but it was the range increase or the movement increasing with the 3-dimensional buildings. Even though we played so much 3D, the range when playing in Nordic, I found myself, the movement, I should say, not the range, the movement of my guys, even though I had scouts on them, I felt hampered. I felt like I didn't even, there were 2 mats, but it felt like playing 3 mats with my army. I don't know if I did something wrong here, but this is the thing that really irritated me afterwards, that I never got to as further in on the playing field as I thought I should, with the movement of 4 at least in the first turn, because the height of the buildings. So for me, that's at least something I will think a lot about next time I know I play a 3D terrain.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we usually play a lot of 3D terrain. We have been doing for ages, and I think that is part of that. That's one of the most interesting parts. That it gives the game different dynamic, moving upwards and downwards. I think it's very interesting. And I mean, some units, like we mentioned before, the flyers, they are a lot better at moving, landing on roofs and stuff. They are quicker, and it gives you interesting choices, both when building your army and of course during the actual gameplay. And sometimes it's very good to move up or down a level or whatever. Sometimes you really don't need it. So that's interesting. But to return to the first question here on to how to evaluate your army's strength. If you're not playing in a tournament, I can also suggest have a small pen and paper just beside and make some notes, for example, of the officer skills on if you succeed or not with them, because they can really impact how the game goes. And afterwards, it's nice to know, like, I failed these rolls 3 times in a row this game, so that's probably where I lost the game.
But do you have a specific number of, for instance, if you choose 10 units, do you do 2 walkers, 8 infantry, or do you have any of those?
When I build my army? No, not at all. Usually I just go by feel and build the core. I decide early on this hero and these couple of units I want to play. And I start from there and just build outwards basically and think of okay, they aren't very good at doing whatever it is, so I need something that can handle heavy armor or handle flyers or aircraft or whatever. And I just build outwards. I tend to just decide early on I want to play this type or this hero because he or she is a cool hero and I haven't been playing that for a while. So.
And then we're kind of going into to a second question there, which is just how do we build our armies with specific scenarios in mind, or do you design them to be successful in different scenarios and different settings? And generally, when I design my army lists, I usually do it for them to be generalized, to be able to at least handle most everything. They are probably better at some things than others, of course, but I should be able to take this army and put them in most scenarios and most situations, and they should be doing at least okay. But if you are going to a tournament, that when you know that they are going to playing these two or these three scenarios, then you should of course take that into account, and you should try to build something that will work with this in some way.
If you have very specific details, you know what scenario and even what map you will be playing, you can of course design your army to fit that specifically. Personally, I don't really like that approach for tournaments, which is why I always prefer to play like very varied both terrain and scenarios. So you kind of force the players to build more generalized stuff, and almost always that's how I build. I don't really care on the scenario or the map at all, because I simply don't know it beforehand. Both for tournaments that we play over here, for the most part at least, and also when playing casually. We just decide on the spot there. Okay, we now have our armies. Okay, so what scenario are we playing?
Yeah, that depends very much on what you're playing. For our tournaments here, the Viking tournaments, there's always the need to have a varied army. So then I try to build varied armies. But if you go for instance, like when we were going to Belgium and when you go to Poland, they are very specific, at least so far in their scenarios. So you have to tailor it to the scenarios. Otherwise, you won't have that fun as well, because if you have to be able to play the scenario, and when it's just one or two scenarios that you're playing. Unfortunately, the amount of spontaneous game time is too low nowadays for my liking. In the older days, when one just played game for fun and one had a special scenario, then I definitely would build for that special scenario. I mean, I'm thinking like if I were to play the Condor scenario, for instance, I will definitely build an army going for Condor.
Yeah, but I mean, we have been playing that kind of scenarios as well. It's been a while since, but we have played those very clear attacker-defender scenarios where you sort of have to, or I mean, sometimes even the scenarios, they have some limitations that you must have vehicles, you must have infantry, you cannot have this or that, or so those can be really fun as well, but that's been a long time since I played one of those scenarios. For the most part, it's just building very generalized all-comers armies.
Yeah, because mostly when one plays something these days, you play it for a tournament. And that's another thing. I'm actually a little bit sick of it, actually, because of many things. I wish I would. Well, I wish we would have more non-tournament gatherings, but then people don't show. It seems like we have instead of a tournament, one should add like we play a certain type of scenarios instead. And I know I should arrange it, and perhaps with the new locale I will try to. but because it gets too, I'm getting more and more frustrated with the competitiveness on some levels, when people just do silly stuff just to win a game, and we are old, soon pensioners, guys. We're playing fucking toy games.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. One thing doesn't exclude the other. So that's also what I'm feeling right now. We have played a lot of tournaments, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I love going to tournaments, but I also love playing casual games just for fun.
Yeah.
And that is also a thing that you should have in mind, that you should have a different mindset when you're building an army list for casual play, because then you don't necessarily want to bring the heavy hitters and the broken combos and the stuff like that, because, well, I know that my opponent are likely going to bring these units because that's all he owns.
Yeah.
So I will bring everything that I know that will definitely beat that.
Yeah.
That will not be a good game for any of you.
No, exactly.
No, unless you have a certain mindset and you need to win.
Yes, of course.
Although I can actually be enjoying having an opponent bringing an army that should destroy me, because then I know that, okay, if I draw this one, I am the hero. If he wins this by 1 victory point, it's a victory for me, because my army shouldn't be. So I have lost a few games.
You always like to be the underdog. So.
Yeah, I know. I have that problem also, as tons of other problems I have. But I mean, it's a very fun thing to play the underdog army and have a good game, lose it by 2 or 3 kill points, and the other guy can go home happy because he won it, but he has sweated like a pig to win it with this super army he's playing. So, I enjoyed it.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah. So someone has to lose, and as long as it's in the right circumstances, it's good.
And let's just quickly go past this third question here also. Any army builds or combinations that we built that we thought would perform well but didn't? Well, I have a good kind of example for a few months ago when I went to one of our smaller local tournaments with the Mythos when they were just brand spanking new, and I lost every match. And that's a very good example. Those are units that look really scary and really just overpowered on paper, but then you get to an actual game and you say, oh, wait a minute, I can't get into this building to get the objective, so when he kills my last infantry, I've lost. I can't do anything to win this anymore. Those are the kind of stuff that just suddenly didn't occur to me, basically. That's for me, and I love that. I love being surprised by the game in those instances, because it seems so simple, but it's emergent. Those kind of things just suddenly appear.
I don't know. To be a wise guy, earlier you guys, at least Johannes, said that maybe you hope that the Mythos wouldn't be tournament legal even because they are so good. And I kind of said,
I'm very happy to be wrong about that.
I mean...
But still, when we had that argument, I'm sorry to cutting in here, but when we had that argument, we had played some tryout games with the Cthulhu Cultists and the complete Mythos set of stats and wise. So that's what we built that on. We haven't seen those in tournaments yet.
That is true.
Yeah, of course, things can always change, so it's going to be interesting. But back to this question about combinations. I can't really say for myself I've had one of those revelations. I really, really wanted my Blutkreuz zombie army to be better than it was. I played it very extensively for a while, and I realized that at the moment it doesn't really work. There are too many things that it can't handle. For the most part, of course, the obvious one is aircrafts. They have so little anti-aircraft, so you're basically forced to put in like a Sturmkönig or something in there. And fine, you could do that, but I don't know. I don't like that, being forced to have, that specific unit to be able to work. It gets too locked down. I want to be able to play my zombie army in one tournament, then change a few things, maybe add more zombies or remove some zombies and add something other. I wanted to perform okay with different builds of it. So that was a bit off-putting for me.
Yeah. There's still a problem there with the aircraft, but that's to me the only problem the Bleutkreuz has. But because you said Stormkönig, or you have to have a capture Skysweeper or something like that. But still, like you feel the force. It's forced upon you. You could feel, because you need to. If you have a chopper coming with these steel guards, anti-infantry squads that just eradicates your whole army in 2 turns. It's it's enough that he placed that unit on the table, then you can shake hands.
At that time, we were playing 100 points almost exclusively, and if you want to have like a Sturmkönig or something else that is really good, you also want some kind of officer to be able to reactivate it to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And suddenly you are above the 25% to get the faction bonus, so it actually costs you even more. So I don't know.
Well, now you do have the command squad that
exactly.
are Bleutkreuz,
so it's getting better. So I can't really say when, but sometime I'm guessing in not too distant future, I probably will dust off my zombie army again and give it a go.
That would be a great army, both the zombies and perhaps even the guerrillas, to go to Poland with. But I still feel the guerrillas perhaps is fast enough, but on 3 mats they will be disadvantaged, and the zombies will not be able to, on the limited time, get to the objectives and to the opponents. So unfortunately, I can see myself playing
the
those.
Zombies are problematic also because you can't put them in transports.
No, that's
the
true.
Guerrillas you can.
Yeah. You should be able to airdrop containers with zombies in it and just have them smash into the surface, see if anyone survives. Those who survive just roll out of the containers. Because it's...
interesting idea. We should pitch that to Olivier.
Well, actually, we did in last year in Poland. It didn't...
So when are they being released?
Yeah. I didn't feel that he was that... supportive of it. But when you talked about the mythos, and I've said this 1,000 times, so perhaps I shouldn't, but I also always think about the first time, the time I played Allied 4 Walkers in the Battlefield tournament for Swedish Masters a couple of years back, because I had only M4 Walkers in the Battlefield version. I knew there would be no buildings. We knew that pre-tournament, so I thought, well, okay, let's take 8 or 9 or what it was M4s, and I had a very good mix of them. They could do anything. I could shoot anything. I had cover for everything, and I was totally wiped on each game, and I have never lost games that hard. I mean, so it was just 0-0-0 all my stats after that tournament, dead last.
Right.
And then of course there's I always miscalculate with the flyers. There's something that this tournament again I had a little bit less air, but this tournament I actually made, the Nordic tour I'm talking about now, I actually made this a calculated risk, because I knew 1 or maybe 2 of the players coming to the tournament would bring choppers. Statistically, me facing them would be almost it would be slim, so I should be able to, perhaps I would get 1 game in the end. If I am very good, I will face particularly one of the players, because he will go to the last stages of the tournament, and I meet him a little bit too early with a little bit the wrong side of table and the wrong side of everything and the wrong side of the day and wrong side of the dice, and
that's always one of the things that it really depends on who you meet, exactly what scenario, what table and stuff like that. So there's always going to be good and bad matchups.
Definitely. And
so that's just the way it is.
We also got an email from Michael, and I'm going to paraphrase his mail slightly. Michael is a new player, picked up the Spetsnaz starter box at the Depticon, and then got some other stuff from a number of players that was selling some SSU stuff. So now has a starting SSU army for the build, but he has two kind of issues that he wants to talk about. And the first is he doesn't have anyone in his local area to play against, which is of course a problem if you want to play. And the other is he asked if we have a kind of beginner's guide to the game, because there are so many different, like we mentioned, there's so many different versions of the game. There's tactics, there's warfare, there's 1947, and there are different versions of the stat cards which are current, and how do you know if you are up to date, and so on. So if you just talk about his first kind of issue first, he doesn't have anyone local to play with. How could you handle that?
Well, my first question would be if he has a local game store. If he does, or some kind of, I don't know, game club or whatever, if there's a place he can go, I would recommend him to bring some stuff and just for free ask them if he could do some demos. Just, show the game a little bit. Even if the store doesn't sell it, they might be interested. Maybe it's a line they can pick up.
Yeah.
The one issue that is that it sounds like he only has units from one of the blocks. That's all of his units are SSU.
Yeah.
So that would kind of limit the demo possibilities a bit, maybe.
But isn't he living in the US?
Yeah.
That was my impression, at least. Doesn't they have this Patreon thing? Couldn't he take contact with Gregorio and to get some support for having
some demo support?
Yeah.
That's probably a very good idea. Yes, if you get in touch with Greg or with the people at Dust USA, they do have that. They do have some support for running tournaments and for doing demos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that could be a very good
perhaps they're in the
possibility
near
to get. Yeah.
They have a drive-by and have some demos. Dust USA have some in that store as well. Or
Absolutely.
And then and who knows? So that.
Yeah, that might very well be a good possibility to get some stuff or to get somebody else to help him. Anyway, if everything of that is not possible, I mean, it's still possible to put together two small SSU forces, just from the stuff that you have, Michael. It doesn't have to show everything of the game, because you're just doing a small demo, just showing. Maybe you could have some pictures, or you could have like a tablet or something showing the website. That there are other stuff available.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean, if you play other games, perhaps you have another gaming group that you play stuff that could be made to look a little bit similar, or you could approximate. I mean, for instance, the Mercenary Girls. Perhaps you have some. If you play another game where there's some mercenary type-ish units, you can use those instead. I mean, walkers are common in many games. Perhaps you can just proxy without and getting away with it. And perhaps even then you could perhaps just get a few people who play that game. If you play another game, if they use their units to that game and you give them just the stat cards, okay, now this time this unit is going to move like this, and shoot like this. Then they can use their thing they already have, and perhaps that could make them interested, and you can find because I know people who have bought Dust things who have used them in other games. I mean, I think it was not Drop Fleet, but it was a beautiful way they've used that airlifter shopper in on a GothCon last year, and they've just made it a terrain piece for a total different game, but it was beautiful. So
there might be crossovers possible.
Yeah, and I think just make the game visible to other players. That's kind of the kind of ground point here.
Yeah, that's the idea. Whatever way you want to do it, show it, because at least in my experience, Dust basically sells itself because it looks so cool. So people will get interested if it's.
So it's basically, if you got it, flaunt it.
Yeah. Perhaps this is not the right time, but like to mention as well, because I have a friend who for some reason don't play Dust, and he's mad for his orcs. But he actually converted, since I was just pestering him all the time. One day he had converted his orcs to Dust with Dust cards. So we played a game with my Russians versus his orcs, and it worked because he had made quite good cards that was Dustified.
Yeah,
so
absolutely
why not?
awesome. I mean, if you have a lot of Astra Militarum from 40k. Use those as proxies. No problem. You can definitely. And there we go over to his second part. How do you get the? How do you know in the whole? How do you get started? How do you know you have the correct stat cards? And get the stat cards. The stat cards are probably the little more kind of difficult bit, but we don't have. A beginner's guide ready for us, but there is a link in the show notes to Board Game Geek, where a guy wrote a terrific getting started guide with links to all different kind of resources that you need. But really, everything you need to get started with Dust is the Dust 1947 rulebook. That's available on the official Dust page as a PDF. You can also download it at our site at dustwarjournals.com. And you need the current stat cards. And there are some different ways to get hold of them. I guess the most effective way is to just download the Enlist app for your mobile device. And that is going to get continuously updated with new units and new releases. There is no official PDF with all of the units, but everything is available on dustgame.com on their official site. Then you can go to each individual unit and see the stats card for that unit there. So that's a way to get the official cards. You can also buy the 2016 card packs. That includes stat cards for every unit released up until that point. And everything you buy from Dust is going to have the new updated official cards.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a few different versions over the years, and the easiest way to just look at to see if the card is the latest one is basically go to the website and look at the design of it, because they look different from before, and just learn what they look like. Then, of course, there has been a little bit of update. For example, the Laser Grenadiers we talked about earlier. So, yeah, the Enlist app should be the latest update. But anyway, it shouldn't be that hard to get hold of the stats somehow.
No, and there's also the fan-made square stat cards that are released on Facebook. We also have them mirrored and available on dustwarjournals.com, so you can download them from there. There's the stats for every unit, and also part of his question is: are there any models released that cannot be used in 1947? No. Everything that's been released in the entire history of the game is legal and is usable in the current system.
Yeah, exactly. So,
the one thing that could be confusing, though, is that some units, especially some infantry squads, have changed names. So you could find a box from the old Fantasy Flight release, for instance, with Fakjeli, and you don't get that name on any of the current cards for the SSU.
Exactly. So
Red Army Assault Squad instead. So
so you basically just have to match visually the look of the unit and see what this is.
That is actually something that no one I've seen, and I haven't seen anyone done that. If someone with too much time on their hands could always do a conversion table that could be put somewhere. Old name, new name.
I actually have made one of those for myself.
I'm not surprised. I suspected this, but I didn't want it.
But I could actually make a page and share that with people, because
I think you should.
It's been useful to me, and so I don't doubt it will be useful for other people.
Great. And I also like to just mention that even though, we should perhaps only talk about the War Journal page here, but we have the Dust Viking page, of course, and I think you can find, at least to my knowledge, quite a lot of interesting things on the War Factory page as well.
That's true.
And that's also a good place to go if you perhaps not if you live in the US, then, because then you go to Dust USA, of course. But if you hear this and you're in the same situation, but you're in anywhere near Europe, have a check on War Factory as well, because you get interesting things on their forum and data and stuff. Some of it is not in Polish, and so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we hope we have kind of brought some light to people out there, get answer to some questions, and we have a lot to talk about this episode. So I hope you bore with us all the way to the end. And with that said, I'd like to thank you, Magnus, and you, Ludde, for joining me for this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
And
us.
as usual, thank all of our listeners for staying with us. And until we hear from you next time, we will see you on the battlefield. Thank you for listening to Dust War Journals. You can find us at dustwarjournals.com or on social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dust War Journals. And you can find our Patreon page at patreon.com/dustwarjournals. All music used in this podcast is made by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com.